Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Huntsman podcast. This is going to be another solo episode, and I want to dedicate this entire episode to one particular topic, and it's quite a prickly topic. And if you know me, you know that I am dedicated to growing the Australian hunting culture, improving it, making it more positive, making it more optimistic, opening it up. And you can't do that without tackling the hard topics. And I have never been ashamed of that. And I want to do it in this video right now. So strap yourselves in, grab your popcorn, crack your beer open, whatever you need to do to get comfy, because this is going to be an interesting ride. I hunt animals in the pursuit of life. Life lived and life taken. I believe it's through this dance with nature and the wild places that we truly live, connect, and grow. I'm Chris Waters, the Huntsman, and these are my stories. What I really want to talk about is public land hunting and private land hunting. Now, notice what I didn't say is public land versus private land hunting. And that's part of what I want to address, is this need that we feel to segregate the two things. And particularly what I want to address is the attitude that a small group of people have, a small minority of people have, that have a very loud voice, that feel like private land hunting isn't real hunting. I want to address that idea. Okay, I'm going to pull it apart, and I'm not here to tell you that private land hunting is the best or public land hunting is the best. I'm not interested in having that conversation. That's not a valuable conversation to have. That doesn't bring any value to Australian hunting culture. Now, what can bring value is a discussion about what makes each of those different forms of hunting interesting. And a part of what I want to talk about it is because prior to season 2 of The Huntsman, pretty much all the stuff that I showed on video was my public land hunting, which I love. And I still continue to this day. And since starting to produce The Huntsman season 2, obviously the first few episodes have been all private land hunting. One of them was even a high fence property, and I'm happy to talk about that too, free range and high fence. And a lot of people have come to me, people who I love and respect. These aren't the angry voices, although a few of those have come as well, saying, Chris, when are you going to do more public land hunting? Because a lot of people love that, which is great. I love it personally. And I'm excited to say that the whole second half of the Huntsman Series 2 is dedicated to that purpose. So if you enjoy that, like I do, there'll be a lot of that content to come. And what I will also say as well, before I get into the nitty-gritty of this topic, is that I haven't stopped doing public land hunting. I still very much love it. It's still very much my bread and butter, although you don't see it. And the reason you don't see it is because it's the kind of hunting that I do for myself in my own personal time. So while I've been going and traveling to different parts of Australia and filming these episodes and primarily hunting on private land, although not exclusively, while I've been doing that, I've still been regularly going out and hunting on public land. And I just don't show it. I just don't want to show it. Not because I don't think it's awesome or fun, because that's the kind of hunting that I enjoy the most, me personally. And it's important that I go out and experience hunting without a camera, without the need to capture pictures of what I'm harvesting and show it to you. Because I need to have something that's just mine. That's just me, that I don't feel any pressure. I need to keep something almost like sacred. And for me, public land hunting, my own personal spots, my own personal locations, my own personal experiences, it's important that they stay personal to me. So I say all that so that if you're a fan of what I'm doing and you enjoy The Huntsman and you've been concerned about me, which I appreciate, and I've appreciated the people who have voiced that, voices that I value. I want to let you know it's okay. I'm not like sold on the whole private thing. I'm not like obsessed with it. I'm very much remaining a balanced hunter who does both private and public. And I'm excited to show you more of the public stuff that I will be filming later in the year. Primarily, most of it's Samba country, high country stuff, Victorian stuff. So stick around for that. But let's talk about let's spend a little bit of time talking about public land and private land. Now, let's start with a broad background for people who aren't necessarily aware of this conversation or how Australia is divided. And not divided in terms of ideologically, but just divided in terms of access. Because the reality is that only New South Wales, Victoria, and Tasmania actually have public land hunting. The rest of the states, so Northern Territory, although there is a small exception in that, I'll put an asterisk on Northern Territory, South Australia, Queensland, Western Australia, they are all locked up, meaning they don't have any public land hunting. All the hunting that happens in those states is private. So that gives you a sense already of the ridiculousness of the statement that public land hunting is the only type of hunting, that private land hunting isn't hunting. Because if you say that and you honestly believe that, what you're saying is, unless Queensland, Northern Territory, South Australian, and Western Australian hunters come into New South Wales, Victoria, or Tasmania to hunt, then they're not real hunters, which is not true. And I don't think that the people who even say those comments about that would believe that anyway. Because they don't have any choice but to hunt on private land. We are very, very lucky in Victoria to have amazing swaths, large regions of hunting forest that we can access. Same in New South Wales. There's a fantastic system there's just millions of hectares of beautiful country that you can explore and harvest from. Same in Tasmania. Very, very lucky to have that. But not every state has that. So the other breakdown that's worth noting that kind of helps frame the conversation is that there's a difference between the different types of private land hunting. So there is what we call free range hunting, which is hunting on a private property where the animals can come and go. Primarily, we're talking about pigs, goats, and deer, because no one cares about whether rabbits or foxes can come and go, because they obviously, doesn't matter what you do, they will come and go as they will. But a free range property is a property where deer and goats primarily and pigs can come in and out of the property. So they can have fences, but the animals can move through them, because obviously deer can jump fences, they can go underneath them. That's free range. And then the other type of private property that people hunt is called high fenced. Now, what that essentially is, it's a high fence that stops the deer predominantly, because a decent fence can stop goats, but it needs to be a high fence to stop the deer moving in and out of that property. Now, that is different again from a deer farming property. They're three separate things. And sometimes you'll hear in a conversation someone who's very passionate about this public land hunting is the only type of hunting ideology will say that if you're hunting in a high fence property, that's just a deer farm. You're hunting in a deer farm. And that's an unfair comment, because there are only, I don't really know of actually any deer farms in Australia where you can hunt. They're deer farms. They're not designed for hunting. They're designed for growing and selling deer. That's what they exist for. So it's not a fair comment. So if you hear that, please, in love, and with grace, address that comment to the person, because it's not particularly helpful. But there are a few what we call high fence properties. Now, these are the properties that essentially frustrate those hunters the most, that they say that's not real hunting. High fence hunting properties is not real hunting. It's like the equivalent of what they say is like shooting fish in a barrel, okay? That's how they describe it. Now, I'd be interested, first of all, in knowing how many of these properties there are in Australia, because I don't think there are many. I know that there's some, like, I believe that Raptor Ridge is one that's high fenced, although maybe it's not fully high fenced. I don't know. I've never been there. I've never experienced that. The other big one that people talk about is Water Valley. And I'm happy to shed some light on that to give people a bit of a context, because I have hunted there. I haven't hunted there many times, but I have hunted there. And it's a very special place. It's an incredible place. Now, it's not the kind of place that you go and hunt all the time. You wouldn't want to. But it is a pretty magical place. I mean, it's 116,000 acres, first and foremost. So that's interesting in terms of context, that it's 116,000 acres. It's more than 12 cattle stations in a series, all connected, and with a high fence property surrounding them. And there are thousands of deer in there. There's like an estimated 10,000 deer on this property. Now, is Water Valley a deer farm? No, it's not. It's 12 or more working cattle stations. That's what it's there. So it's not even a game park. Technically, what it is a series of cattle stations. Now, it just so happens that it's high fenced and there are a lot of deer in there. Now, because of that, there is a number of guides that make use of that property to guide on. So when you go to Water Valley, you're not, and you hunt in Water Valley, it is private property. It is high fenced. You're not paying Water Valley. You're paying a hunting guide who has access, who has like a lease or like a special contract to shoot on that property. Now, 116,000 acres and 10,000 deer, roughly. So you're going to see red deer, fallow deer, sambar deer, chital. You won't see hog deer. Rusa, you'll see rhubarb in there as well. It's pretty much one of the few places that you can have a decent crack at getting a rhubarb. Otherwise, if you try and get a rhubarb in state forest, it's like a once in a life. If you manage it, it's an incredible once in a lifetime feat. A rhubarb, for those who aren't aware, is a cross between a sambar and a rusa. They're actually the only two species of deer in Australia that actually hybridize. Everything else keeps to itself. So a rhubarb is pretty amazing. But they don't have hog deer. That's the only species they don't have in Water Valley. So they have all these deer. And yes, within 10, 15 minutes of entering Water Valley, you will start seeing deer. Okay, so that gives you a bit of a context. If you're going in there to shoot a meat animal, it is not difficult. And I don't think anyone who hunts in a property like that is claiming that it's difficult. Now, please hear me again in this entire conversation. What I'm not doing is defending high fence properties, defending private land hunting, or defending public land hunting. I'm not interested in having that conversation. I think all hunting is amazing. I want to personally expose myself to all different types of hunting. As an example, recently I tried out pig dogging, which I've never done before. And I have a lot of thoughts on that that I will share in another episode. It was actually a very interesting experience, not in the ways that you're probably thinking. But anyway, so I want to expose myself to all different. So I'm not trying to defend it, but I'm just trying to give some information and some context. So if you went to somewhere like Water Valley, one of the few real high fence properties in Australia, you're generally going there to either learn how to hunt, which is the perfect playground to learn how to hunt because you can see different species acting in their different ways. You can see the nuances in their behavior. You can see all the different sign close to each other because some of the deer are intermingling. Like you might see a face that has a chital and fallow together. You might see sambar and rusa together. You will see the reds doing their things. You'll see a whole bunch of different deer doing different things in a short amount of time. So it's incredibly useful for training and education. It's also a great place to go if you want to get that once in a lifetime trophy because given that it's high fence, the deer are breeding and you're going to see some of those kind of pristine, incredible genetic animals. Now, sometimes in high fence properties, it goes too far. And in some of the places in New Zealand, you see those reds that look like a swamp monster. They've got so many tines in so many different directions. Now, some people think that's awesome. They love it. It's not my thing. That's not something that I'm interested in. But some people like it. But you'll be able to find an incredible representative trophy or world quality trophy or even record breaking deer in somewhere like Water Valley. That's the kind of opportunity that it presents. Now, like I said, is it something that you want to do every single day? No, it's not. It's not. It's important that you expose yourself to the grind. That's a really important part of being a deer hunter, is going out there and hitting the state forest. I think that's been part of the people's concern with me, seeing the stuff with the Huntsman recently saying, Chris, are you still doing the grind? Are you still going out there and being smashed by deer and them teaching you lessons? 100%, I guarantee you. Trust me, I still experience that. Now, is that great for TV? Not necessarily. But am I still experiencing it personally? Yes, very much so. Deer are still kicking my ass, don't worry. And I'm not either getting big-headed about hunting either. I go into these situations and not thinking that I'm some incredible hunter. I'm not an incredible hunter. Let me reiterate that for anyone who is interested. I'm happy for you to take clips of this and play it wherever you want. I'm not a professional hunter. I don't even think I'm a very good hunter. What I am is someone who's passionate about hunting and who relentlessly is pursuing a life of hunting. And I'm obsessed with learning how to hunt. And so I will place myself in every single situation I can where I can learn from different people with different levels of skill and in different locations and in different formats so that I can become the best hunter that I can be. And so that I can help other people learn about hunting too. So that's some context about Water Valley. Now, again, some people say that it's like shooting fish in a barrel in a high fence property like that. Let me tell you from someone who has a little bit of experience, not a lot, but a little bit of experience, it's not like that. The deer will still act like wild deer. They're not going to sit there and let you shoot them. They will hide. If they see you or they smell you, they will run away. They're not like it's not a deer farm. It's not like you sitting over the fence or jumping out of the car and just shooting one in the head. They are very much, responding and acting like wild animals, because in 116,000 acres, they almost are. Now, obviously, they are somewhat conditioned because they see hunters come and go all the time. They see cars running around. They see the people working at the cattle stations. But so it's not like you're hunting a wild animal. It's not the same dynamic, but it's not very different. For instance, like if you see an awesome stag and then it smells you and it runs, it's gone. Like in the wild, it's gone. You're not going to be able to find it. It's done. You're done with that deer. Now, the beauty behind Water Valley is that if you go over to the next valley, you might see something else that's interesting. Or if you go deeper into that property, you might find something more interesting. So that's some context. Now, something else that's worth talking about with Water Valley is that while it is high fenced, which is an important thing to talk about, the deer will obviously can't leave that high fence property. And you'll sometimes hear people talk about how that's unfair for the deer, okay? And that's one of the reasons why they don't like it. Now, first and foremost, it's totally okay if high fence hunting isn't your thing. It's not personally my thing. I enjoy going and doing it, once and experiencing, or maybe even once in a while. It's never going to be my staple. It's like if all you ate was dessert, you would ruin your appetite. And it's okay if people don't like dessert. That's fine. You don't have to eat dessert. No one's forcing you to eat dessert, okay? But we need to be careful about our attitudes and any division that we might cause in the Australian hunting culture unnecessarily, because some people, they like dessert. In fact, some people, all they want to eat is dessert. Now, is it particularly healthy? No. But are we there to question their lifestyle choices? No, that's not appropriate either. So let people do what people want to do. You don't have to be on a high horse. There's no righteous position in this conversation. But is it unfair for the deer? Because they can't leave Water Valley. Well, it's 116,000 acres. And again, there's lots of cover. There's lots of bush. They move around as they want. So if the deer want to get away from you, they can. But Chris, it's still high fenced, I hear people say. And I agree with you. I totally understand. I totally agree with you. But here's some context that you might find interesting. In New South Wales, Tasmania, and Victoria, there are state forests that are essentially landlocked. They are state forests that are not connected to a large forest range. And so they are locked by private properties, farming, sometimes rural. And the deer, I can promise you this, will never leave those locations. They're in the state forest and they won't ever, no matter how much you push them around, decide to leave the cover of the bush and just waltz into a paddock, 10 kilometers into that paddock and then appear somewhere else. They won't do that. Now, not in the current climate. Now, actually, what's interesting is in COVID, we actually saw this happen, which was kind of crazy. The wild kind of entrenched into the cities. There was footage of deer in the CBD of Melbourne, which is very, very, very strange. So once the pressure releases, yes, deer will start to range further. But while there's pressure, and all these state forests have pressure in them, the deer will stay in that state forest. But the question is, how big are those state forests? Let me give you some examples, and I've written these down because they're interesting. Again, let's remember that Water Valley is 116,000 acres of fenced property. Well, in Victoria, there is a popular state forest called Mount Disappointment. It's near Flowerdale, and that is somewhat landlocked in terms of the state forest. The deer aren't going to leave that region. They're in there. You can push them around, but they're not going to leave it. That's 44,000 acres, that state forest. Okay? So that's less than half the size of Water Valley. Okay, so how fair is it to hunt in Mount Disappointment? I would say most hunters, I think every hunter would say, very fair. It's state forest, Chris. Of course it's fair. But the deer aren't going to leave that region. Half the size of Water Valley, you're still pushing them around, okay? But I hear you think, well, Mount Disappointment, that has a huge mountain in it, Chris. That affects the terrain, that affects the advantage the deer have. And I completely agree with you. Let's look at another example. What about Wombat State Forest? Wombat State Forest is a very famous forest in Victoria because it is very much isolated. It's kind of the northeast from Melbourne. So it's not connected to the high country at all. It's completely landlocked and isolated. 119,000 acres, okay? There is deer in Wombat State Forest. It gets heavily hunted, but there are deer. You can spend all day traveling around that 119,000 acres, pushing deer all around, and they will never leave Wombat State Forest. Okay? That's some context. For those of you, my New South Welshman friends, Vickery is 6,000 acres. You guys have heaps of these little pockets, tiny little landlocked state forests. 6,000 acres. There is deer there, but you can push them around. They're never going to leave it. Another one. Let's talk about a really popular state forest, Nundle. And if we want to be even more generous, let's go Nundle and Tuggerlow as well. Or no, let's go Nundle and Hanging Rock. And let's exclude Tuggerlow for a second. Those two combined, Nundle and Hanging Rock, is 81,000 acres of state forest. Okay, and now some of that's logged. Okay, so I mean, when you talk about fairness, when you talk about the ethics behind it, there's some things to consider, okay? Now, again, what I'm not saying, please don't hear me, please don't watch this or listen to this and feel like I'm saying one is better than another, okay? They're different, okay? They're both hunting, okay? And it's okay that they're different. And we don't need to pick and choose one as a post to die on, as a hill to die on, as a kind of ethical and moral pillar to stand on and shout from. Look, I love state forest hunting. I love the challenge. I love the burn. Okay, but not everyone can hunt in state forest. What about Bill, who is 80 years old and he's in a wheelchair? Are you going to push Bill out into the state forest in a wheelchair into the middle of Nundle? Are you going to do that? Probably not. You might kill Bill. No pun intended. What would be better is to take Bill out to a really nice private property that fringes state forest that you have access to and set him up and get him there in the evenings. Get the rug over him, get the hot cocoa, whatever you want, get the rifle on him on a stand or whatever, and let him have a crack at the deer that way. Like, it's okay to augment and change the way that you hunt and have different hunting experiences, okay? Is state forest hunting harder? Yes, of course it's harder. Is it more rewarding? Yes, it's more rewarding. Is it better? Well, that's a relative term. And some of you may say yes, okay? And I'm not angry at people who say yes. I'm totally fine for people to say yes. I have an opinion, yes or no, on that comment. I'm not going to tell you what that is because it's not useful and people will use it against me. But it's okay to have an opinion. What I just want to kind of avoid is giving fuel to that small minority of people with a very, very loud voice who are almost religiously zealous in that statement that unless you're hunting in public land hunting, you're not a real hunter. See, what we want to avoid is segregation within the Australian hunting community. There's enough of that as it is. Hunters in general, we get defensive, we get possessive of our spots, and it naturally leads to this competition that can be okay. That can be actually a really positive thing, but it can also be incredibly unhealthy. And we want to avoid as much of that segregation and tension as possible. We don't want things to be abrasive. We don't want to be fighting. We don't want infighting. There's enough people pushing against us from the outside, trying to remove our freedoms and remove our liberties. We don't need to be fighting amongst ourselves and either distracting ourselves from the opportunities of going out there and gaining new territory politically or legally, or just breaking down what we already have. So I guess I say all of that to try and bridge the gap and try and offer you some information and some language so that if you're in this context and you hear someone say, well, that's just private land hunting, or that's just shooting in a deer farm, that you can address it with grace, with love. It's certainly something that I do. I mean, again, when I released episode 3 of the Huntsman season 2, which is in Water Valley, I copped a heap of flack. Now, I was very open and honest, saying that we're hunting in South Australia. Okay. Now, I didn't say in the video we're hunting in Water Valley because I didn't feel like I needed to. I didn't feel like I needed to defend it. I didn't want to spend like the time, like in this long form episode of this podcast, doing that. It's not appropriate. It's not the time to do that. But it is appropriate to have this conversation. But regardless, people commented on that video and shared their thoughts. Some people in a really authentic way and helping and being honest and loving. Some people in a really negative way with a lot of tension and a lot of hate and anger. And even in those contexts, even when replying to those people, I've tried as much as possible to return love, to give them time, to give the conversation time to breathe. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to help this conversation is relationship. Because if someone comes at you and they're really, really angry and they just want to throw words at you and throw an ideology at you, and they're not willing to sit down and invest in you as a person, have a conversation, sit down, have a beer together, have a cup of tea, have a coffee together, break bread together. If they're not willing to do that, it doesn't matter. You're not going to change their opinion, and that's not really your job to change their opinion. What I'm suggesting is that with these people, have some language like this. Have a bit of a critical think about the differences between state forest hunting and private land hunting, free range, and high fenced, and all of the things that make those opportunities interesting and unique. And you don't need to pick one. If you want to, you can, but you don't need to prophesy and evangelize and criticize other people for their decisions. Hunting is a beautiful thing. It's amazing that we have the opportunities that we have. We need as much people hunting in our state forests as we can get. Likewise, we have amazing guides and property owners that are worth investing in. Hunting opportunities that are worth investing in to learn and to have a crack at that big trophy, or to harvest an animal quickly and easily to fill the freezer. There are so many great things about both public and private land hunting, and you don't need to pick one or the other. And if you do, just be mindful of the people who've maybe picked the other side. For those people who are concerned about my position, I love all hunting still. So I'm not joining the dark side or whatever some people might think. Anyway, I hope that's been useful for you. I hope that's given you some language that you can use. Again, I will say it right now. We're still in the middle of producing season 2 of The Huntsman. Literally, by the time you hear this, episode 4 will have come out. We've actually already filmed episode 5, and we're starting to film the second half of the season, which is pretty much, it's a lot of public land hunting, chasing sambar with some of my friends. That's something. I mean, here's a completely separate thing, but some people have criticized me for hanging out with some of my friends who are guides. And all of the hunting in the Huntsman season 2 has been with friends of mine. Now, they also happen to be guides, but we're not in a guided client relationship. I'm not paying for guided hunts, if that's a concern that people have. I just wanted to say that up front, because some people might think that, oh, he's just going out and paying for guided hunts. I'm not paying for any of these guides. I'm hanging out with my friends who are hunting guides. And the reason why I'm hanging out with them is because A, they're awesome hunters and they have a lot to teach. And I'm here to learn. So I'm hanging out with them. B, because they're friends. And I'm always going to be hanging out with friends because that's fun to do. And C, they have access to awesome places where there's awesome hunting. So if you put those A, B, C together, of course I'm going to hunt with them. And of course you would too if you had friends that were like that. You can't tell me that if you had Bill, who's one friend, and Jack, Bill, who's a friend who has no hunting access and is not a very good hunter, never really hunted before, not great on camera. And then you've got Frank. And Frank is a professional hunter, has an amazing vocabulary of hunting that you can learn from and experience, and has access to awesome places. Who are you going to hunt with? Especially if I said to you, hey, you're also producing a TV show. So, who do you want to hunt with for the TV show? That's just some context. That's another rant. That's a big rant. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Anyway, I'm conscious this has been a shorter podcast. I am still committed to doing more of these. I hope that you found it valuable. Where possible, I'm trying to kind of combine season 2 with some of these podcasting opportunities. I've been flying a little bit, and I'm limited in the baggage weight that I have, and so it's a lot of work to take a lot of podcasting gear up to a location when I'm flying. So I haven't done so many with the people I've been hunting with recently. But again, second half of the year, pretty much all in Victoria, and so I'll be driving around a lot, and there'll be a lot more conversations. There's going to be some really fun episodes coming up, really, and we're not just going to. Yes, we're doing public land hunting, but we're going to spice it up a little bit. We're going to do some interesting things to make it more challenging. There will be some hunting with hounds. There'll be some hunting with pointers. We're going to have a new hunter who's never shot a deer before coming in and focusing on them. There's going to be some really cool stuff coming up, board. So, I hope that you can look forward to it. And finally, look, if you're not a member of the Australian Hunters Club, man, our club is growing. And it is such a fun place to be a part of, such a healthy place to be a part of. We've got members who are hosting hunts all the time. We've got someone who was doing it like Ilden recently. They booked that hunt out in like seconds of posting it up. We've got someone else at the moment who's just joined the club and wanting to hunt with other people. So he's putting in some time at public land hunting places and people are joining him. We've got our camp coming up in like less than a month's time. Or less than 2 weeks' time. Awesome stuff happening in our club and community. Again, if you haven't checked it out, I really want to encourage you to check it out. It's a great place to learn and connect. We also give away hunts, professionally guided hunts every single month, and products and a whole bunch of other different things. So if you're interested in learning more, becoming a better hunter, and embedding yourself in an awesome hunting community, and maybe having the chance to win some cool stuff, check out the Australian Hunters Club, australianhunters.com.au. It's the club that I'm in. I want to personally invite you to join it as well. Otherwise, look, thank you so much for everyone for your support in filming this season, in producing this podcast, and all the things that I do. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your attention, and I appreciate when you reach out via email or in the comment section. Please continue to do that. The Huntsman as a brand is only growing and getting better and better, and we are seeing a change in the Australian hunting culture. That's the coolest thing. That's the thing that makes me happy. That's what gives me a smile on my face every time I wake up. It's awesome, and it's thanks to you. So thank you all, and I hope to see you in another episode, podcast, or video soon.